What's good, everybody? Volcanix here. We have an interesting deck profile today. So, Battles of Chaos releases in, let me check my watch, like next week. So, in celebration, I have an entire deck for you released next week. Um, Basically, the sneak peek event, you're allowed to buy 5 packs, whatever, for to buy in at the tournament. I was able to trade for a Dinomorphia Thurzia, and it kind of gave me the idea to make the deck. I've already thought it was pretty cool, and I was able to trade for the rest of the core or pack it. And I also packed a second copy of the Starlight. So, yeah, look at that. That is just crisp and beautiful. So the deck list today, it's not going to be as complete as the other stuff that we have been showing you guys, quality control wise, because the deck isn't really out until next week. But that aside, it's very functional, very fun, and I'm only missing one card right now that is actually out. But besides that, you would have a lot of fun with this deck. There's times that you can win. I mean, I deck test and I can win duels against meta games or against meta decks with like 1 or 2 life points left. And there's a cool little tech at the end. These last 2 cards here that we'll try to show you. And so let's just get right into it. We are going to start off with 3 copies of Dinomorphia Thurzia. So Thurzia is one of the best cards in the deck. Basically, you normal or special it, you're able to set a Dinomorphia card, which is usually going to be your copy of Dinomorphia Domain. Next, we got the other name in the deck. We got 3 copies of Dinomorphia Diplos. Diplos effect, if it's normal or special, you can send a Dinomorphia to grave. This one, you can send any. You can send a trap or a monster. Spell 2, I guess, if we ever get a Dinomorphia spell. But it depends on what's in your hand, because you might be sending the copy of Thurzia to get your plays going because they do revive each other on destruction. Or you might end up sending the trap, because you can actually, there's a trap in here, a counter trap, that can copy the effects of any counter trap in grave. And there is a monster in the extra deck, Kentragina, which can copy any normal trap effect. Then we have our single copy of Miscellaneousaurus. We all know what it does. It's at 1 on the list. It's really good in dinos. If you have a dino deck and you don't run Miscellaneousaurus, you might not be playing Yu-Gi-Oh! We run only 2 copies of Fossil Dig. Believe it or not, it's pretty consistent because even though the monsters are considered your starters, you also have a 3 of Trap, which is considered a starter. And once we get Dimension Force here in May, we will have another 3 of Trap that is a starter. So we really only need 2 right now, and that might even be cut down to 1 very soon. It's good to search Miscellaneous, though. We are on 1 copy of Pot of Duality, 1 Raigeki, and 1 Called By. If I was going to cut anything from the deck, it's probably going to be the Called By. And with the new list having triple Raigeki, I might end up switching this for a playset of Raigeki, because your biggest problem is when they set up a whole bunch of negates before you do anything. Because, I mean, you can play around 1 or 2 Omni negates, since plenty of decks are going to be going around monster negates. And going first is fine, because you're not ever going to get hurt with Lightning Storm, because you can usually get rid of it with one of your counter traps or whatever you're using. Next, we got the 3 Dinomorphia Domain. This one, pretty straightforward. You can fusion summon by sending from your deck or hand or field. Paying half your life points, of course, just like every other effect in the deck. Dinomorphia Brute. This is a non-targeting destruction. It'll destroy 1 Dinomorphia you control as well as 1 card your opponent controls. So it could out any card. It can out. In deck testing, I've outed copies of Zombie World or Mystic Mine with it. I've added copies of Skill Drain, stuff like that. And speaking of, I don't have Skill Drain in this build, but once we get our boss monster in Dimension Force, it'll let us really play into the Skill Drain, because that'll let you have a back row Skill Drain and Skill Drain itself, as well as a monster version of Skill Drain on legs. We now have 3 copies from the new set, a common card, Imprudent Intrusion. This one's really good. You can it's either a non-targeting destruction, and it's not once per turn, or you can revive 1 monster from the grave. But the caveat is you can only destroy a monster with attack less than the difference in life points between you and your opponent, or you can only revive a monster from your grave with attack less than or equal to the difference in life points. So usually you're going to be paying half all the time. So it's 4K is usually the ceiling for how high you can summon. And Kentragina is a 4K in the grave that you can summon. We are only on 2 copies of Alert. Alert, pay half your life points, summon Dinomorphias from your grave with different names until they get up to 8. So you can summon like each of the level 4s, or you can summon one of the fusions, just so that it's a 6 instead of instead of the 2 4s. We are on 2 copies of End of the Line. End of the Line is really cool, and you can resolve it to draw 4 in this deck. So we'll read it real quick. If your life points are lower than 100, draw 2 cards. Then, if your life points are lower than 10, draw 2 additional cards. So, decks like Adignisters will have the eye contact where you can draw 3. I don't think any deck has a draw 4 that they can actually abuse, but we can. And I'm going to set this aside because I'll explain why we can actually resolve it pretty often in a minute. Then we are on 3 copies of Dinomorphia Shell. Shell, at the beginning of the battle phase, you can summon you pay half your life points, summon a token in defense with 3k, and then your opponent cannot target other monster for attacks except for that one. So it helps you stay safe during the beginning of the battle phase, and it can't be negated unless they have a solemn or a counter trap that will negate it, which is very good to play around things. Then we have 3 copies of Reversion. So Reversion only is active if you control a Dinomorphia fusion, and you can copy the effect of any counter trap engraved. It doesn't have to be a Dinomorphia, so you can copy a Solemn Strike, you can copy a Solemn Judgment, doesn't matter. And it doesn't copy the cost, only the effect. You can get into some real cool shenanigans. I actually think Vanity's Call, the one that negates everything in the chain, you can actually copy it with Dinomorphia Reversion, because you won't have to actually hit the requirement of chain 4 or higher. I think that's how that works. Don't quote me on that, but I believe. Dinomorphia Sonic, pay half your life points, negate a spell or trap, and then destroy a Dinomorphia. So get your plays rolling, let them revive each other. We are on 3 Solemn Judgment, very straightforward, as well as the 1 Solemn Strike. That rounds out the counter traps, and we have 2 cards left, which is the tech that I'm very proud of. The only reason I'm on 2 is because I don't have a 3rd copy, but I am picking it up ASAP. That is Ferret Flames. So Ferret Flames, if the combined attack of all face-up monsters your opponent controls is higher than your life points, make your opponent shuffle monsters they control into the deck, their choice, so the combined attack of the remaining monsters they control becomes less than or equal to your life points. So, this is really interesting. It's not destruction, it shuffles in, so it'll hit a Dragoon, as long as you bait the negate out, or you can solemn it, it doesn't matter. It hits everything. You can even be going against Adignisters, and they can get a rival Cybers, and you can shuffle it in because you're not doing it, and it forces your opponent to do it to their own cards. And I mean, I've seriously resolved this card with maybe 6 life points sometimes. I'll have 3 life points, and I'm not saying 6 or 3,000. I'm saying 6 or 3, as in 1, 2, 3 life points. It's really weird, and End of the Line comboing off with that, you can draw 4 and shuffle everything they control into the deck as long as it isn't 0. Pretty interesting stuff. Get into the extra deck. We have 3 copies of Dinomorphia Kentragina. This one's pretty cool. It's at 4k, but it loses attack equal to your life points. So it'll usually have probably around 3,500 attack by the time you get it out and by the time you're using its effect. It has a quick effect to banish and copy the effect of any Dinomorphia normal trap in your grave, not the counter trap. And also, when it's destroyed, you can summon out a Dinomorphia level 4 or lower from the deck, from the graveyard. We are on 2 copies of Stealth Bergia. Stealth Bergia is fine, but it makes it so that you don't pay life points to activate traps. It comes in handy if you need to activate your Solemn Strike, so you can get this guy out and make your Solemn Strike live if you don't have enough life points to activate it. But you will always have enough to have, so you don't need to use it for Judgment. And getting lower on life points makes a lot of your stuff even more deadly to your opponent. So don't go into him all the time. In case of emergencies, we do have the Dark Charmer Gloomy, new release in the Battle of Chaos set. This one has actually come in handy in deck testing to revive a defeated Dark Dragoon to your side of the field, which always is good. We are then on 3 copies of Lagia and 1 copy of Dolka. I would be on 2 and 2, but this is what I had on me, and I'm just trying to get this out to you guys really early so you can start building and trying to track down these cards in pre-release. Maybe even run it. Let me know in the comments if some of you can put this together for a sneak peek and maybe top the event if you have a sneak peek coming up. Not sure if it's all last week or if it's coming up this weekend for some people or what. Basically, Dolka, you can detach one material to negate monster effect and destroy it. And then Logia, you can detach two to negate a spell or trap and destroy it, or to negate a summon and destroy it. And they both require 2 level 4 dinos. Then we have one Baguska, and we do not have a full 15 card extra deck, but we will be rounding it out with one Utopia and one Utopia Ray. So some things you can add in to fill out the deck is obviously like a Utopia double, which would be fine. But what I'm more interested in is Utopia Prime. I could not find my copy before I recorded this. That's why Utopia Ray is here. But if you guys know what Utopia Prime is, you can throw it on top of the Utopia and activate its effect. It doesn't really matter. I believe it it destroys and banishes cards that your opponent controls that are special summoned. But that's not the important part. The important part is, even if the effect is negated, the cost of that effect is to pay your life points down to 10. So if you can get 2 monsters on board, overlay Utopia Prime, even if you activate it and they negate and destroy it, you are now at 10 life points, which means your Ferret Flames will shuffle in every monster they control until they have less than 10. And if you activate one effect and then end of the line, you can draw 4. Or if you activate end of the line as soon as your Utopia activates, you can just get a pot of greed right there, and it's very satisfying to do. So, anyways, let us know what you think of this deck profile, this early beta version of it. It's going to be very good in Dimension Force, like I mentioned, and here at VSG we have some really cool deck profiles in the pipeline. Um, I know we have one of our trio actually topped with Fluffles at their event, so we have that coming up soon. Um, we do have some stuff in the pipeline like Odd Eyes coming out before this new support. We have Volcanic deck. We have a another hero build. We have on top of that we have a Shark deck coming out. We just have a lot of awesome stuff. I mean, it's hard to release though because a lot of these decks we want to make them as competitive as possible before we get it out to you guys. But that aside, let us know what deck profiles you would be interested in, and we can see if we can tune them up and bring them to you ASAP. That should be it for today. Anyways, Volcanix out.